Hi guys, it's Tony Robbins. You're listening to Habits and Hustle. Crush it.
This is one of those interviews where, I wear your Oura ring, and I really like it. And it's not, that's really why kind of part of my excitement for actually speaking to you. So, because a lot of these different wearables and a lot of different technology companies in the wellness space, so to speak, like you use it and then it kind of like, you kind of like use it for a week or two, and then you kind of get like annoyed with it or bored with it. And then I do anyway. And then I put it away.
Same. Yeah.
Right. And with yours, or I forget it's there. So it's perfect. In fact, I forget it's there so much where it's like, I don't see my readings. I forget to even charge it half the time.
Look, we hear that from people all the time, like telling us they forget it's even there. And frankly, that's part of the reason we chose the ring form factor. It's just so much more convenient. They call them wearables, right? But Kara Swisher, she, on one of her like early days of wearables days, she called them unwearables. She's like, these things are such a big pain in the ass, right? Like, she's like, I never wear it with a dress. She's like, I never wear this when I'm going. I have to charge it every night. And she also is a fan of the ring, and she's like, this is great. I charge it like once a week. It's fantastic. And this is like the first thing, to your point, like it's almost the ultimate habit. Everyone's going to try to sleep tonight. And everyone, it affects how they feel and perform the next day. So,
absolutely. And like, we just, so like, why don't I just introduce who you are, and I'll do like a later, but like, basically we have Harpreet Singh Rai or Ray. How do you pronounce your name?
Rai, like the bread or the whiskey.
Oh, Rai, or the whiskey. Okay. I'm a bread lover, so I'm going to say Rai. I'm going to go with that.
Cool.
And you're the CEO of Oura Health, and your product is the Oura ring, which, I've been telling you about. And, you're basically, I'm a big fan of it. And I'd love for you to kind of explain, like, I didn't realize that the company has been around, since 2013, right? And Finnish company?
Yeah.
Yep. No, and you came on board as the CEO like in 2017. So I guess my first question really is, number one, how did you get involved? What's your background? Explain to people what Oura Health is, if you don't know what the Oura ring is. I mean, we're going to get into all of that. And, it's kind of like I feel like it's kind of like become very popular as of late, but it's been around, like, to my point, like what I said, like for 7-8 years already.
Yeah. Well, look, thanks for having me on the show. So appreciate that and everything you do. So in terms of the company, we started in 2013. This is our second generation product. To your point, the one that's, getting a lot more popular now. Our first generation product launched at the end of 2015 on a Kickstarter. We really started shipping in earnest in 2016. And I got involved because I was one of the first 1,000 customers that literally bought the product, was really impressed with it. And like you were sort of talking about before, I've tried probably 7-8 different wearables and, probably tried 100 things for our health. Right. And like, this was the first thing that actually stuck. And it was actually, sleep, I guess I started to realize is the ultimate hustle, but we'll get into that later. I actually bought the ring. It was the first ring or wearable that really focused on sleep and recovery versus just like how many steps in a day. And I sort of just got hooked. And I happened to meet one of the co-founders at a Whole Foods. He was wearing an Oura ring t-shirt. The company started in Finland. There were probably like 10 people at this time. And this must have been May of 2016. So they just started shipping a Kickstarter. I don't even think all the units were shipped. And, he's wearing this Oura t-shirt. My girlfriend goes up to him, starts talking to him. And he's like a little confused guy from Finland. Like, why is this stranger talking to me? And then I'm like looking for my girlfriend, because I'm like, where is she? And I see her talking to this guy. And then I go up to join the conversation. And he's like, oh, the Oura ring. He's like, that's the first Oura ring I've seen outside the office. So first he was like, company was really early days, and they were just getting started. And as my background, as you asked, so I studied electrical engineering. I was a tech nerd in high school and college. I specifically studied MEMS sensors, which is like all these wearable sensors. I went to University of Michigan, big Michigan fan, go blue.
I love it.
And
I'm Canadian, and I lived in Toronto for many years. So people would come to Toronto. It's very close, and
of course, Windsor, right? Windsor's
100%. Exactly.
Windsor Casino. Everyone used to go there, right?
That's right.
When we were in college before you were 21.
Exactly.
So I met the co-founder, and long story short, with me, I did electrical engineering. I was graduating in 2006. From 2007, I was like halfway through my master's, ended up not finishing it at Michigan. I decided to go into investment banking, mainly because I had a bunch of student debt. It was a financial boom. I had some friends in the business school that are like making fun of me. They're like, you're like definitely way smarter than us, but we're going to make like twice as much as you are. My sister was living in New York City. I grew up in New Jersey. So I was like, everyone wants to be in New York City.
Right.
And there was no real engineering jobs in New York City back in, mid 2000, like Facebook, Google, all these companies didn't have offices there yet. And so I go do banking. My first year, I get no sleep. I gain 50 pounds. I'm like 5'6" with my turban, is what I like to tell people. And, I really get into my health, so that was like 2008. I leave. I was at Morgan Stanley in the M&A group. I leave. I joined a hedge fund actually, and they were mainly focused on tech, media, and telecom investing. So it was a little bit of my background with tech, along with obviously some new stuff I learned in banking and finance. I ended up staying there a long time, 9 years. I got promoted to portfolio manager, and luckily got to focus and lead a lot of our tech investments at the fund. And, so I knew a lot about now the business side of it, like how to make successful businesses. And I obviously knew the technology side. That's what I studied in college, and the health side. So after gaining 50 pounds, 2009, I think, is when I first went on my first keto diet, and then intermittent fasting right after. Started just tracking everything. I used to weigh my food every day. People in the office thought I was nuts. I tracked everything in a spreadsheet, every meal, every exercise I did for 2 years. And ended up losing about, I think it went from like 190 to 135. That was probably like peak. And that was almost a little too light for me.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of weight. So I guess the keto and intermittent actually worked for you.
It did. I did hit a plateau. So I eventually went to like and I was working out a ton. And I eventually went to like carb cycling. But frankly, the thing that I still, like a lot of people, hit fitness plateaus. And like most of us, right? You're normally professional in something else other than sports, right? We're a professional, entrepreneur. You're a professional, analyst or portfolio manager at a hedge fund, right?
Right.
And so what do? You happen to cut out, you want to work hard, you want to play hard, you want to have a good social life. But what was I cutting out a lot? Still was sleep. And when I got the Oura Ring, it was the first thing where I started realizing, like, holy cow, I really started then tracking my sleep, very easily through this, that I started to realize the days I sleep better, I'm actually performing better in the gym. I'm getting more done at work. I still do use a to-do list and was just cranking through stuff. I was in a better mood. I was better, dog owner. I was like, took my dog on more walks. I was more present with her. I was more present, obviously, with my loved ones, my girlfriend, and even my family and my coworkers. And so I was like, made me a better boss, made me more productive at work, made me better at my workouts. I was like, holy cow, most people don't realize how much sleep affects us day to day and in the long term. And so I meet the co-founder, we grab coffee the next day. Long story short, I ended up spending 6-7 hours with them. They're trying to raise money, but, this company started in Finland, really big, bulky ring. At the time, battery life was only a day. They were, out of money. They pitched 60, 70 VCs. I personally decided to invest, put their Series A together. I joined the board, and about 30 days after that first board meeting, I think I was spending 40 hours a week with them instead of my regular job. And then they asked me to join. I actually joined first, and the board asked me to join. I joined first as president, and then a year later, I got promoted to CEO. So that's sort of how the journey started.
That's amazing. So you're actually just one of their, a fan of the product.
Yeah.
And it actually helped change your life. And then that's how you got it. That's an amazing story, actually. And so what were they doing before, by the way? You said this was not their first product. What was Oura Health?
Sorry, this isn't our, the ring we have today, the one that you have on.
You're saying it was the bigger, bulkier one?
Yes, correct. That was our first product.
Okay, got it. Because so you were touching upon it a little bit earlier, because we were saying about the fact that I think part of, I would say as a person who again is a fan of the product and uses it, what's so good about it is that you forget it's there. Like most other wearables, you're wearing them on your wrist. Your competitor, it's very tight. It's like cumbersome. It's very uncomfortable. I probably shouldn't be saying that, but so I really do like it. You kind of forget that you're there, and it tracks your data. Can you explain then now, like why you guys decided to do a ring versus the other wearable?
Versus like a wrist or like an Apple Watch or Fitbit or whoever.
Exactly. Or whoever, right? Because nobody else is, no one else is really doing that.
No, a ring is hard.
Yeah.
So the main reason is two things: accuracy and convenience. Convenient, we all talked about, right? Like most people actually, it's not just you and me. It's most people don't like actually wearing something on their wrist all the time. The wearables, they do have to be tight. The sensor is really tight. It's annoying when you type and you have your hands on a desk. It's annoying, frankly, if you're trying to sleep with it, right? And I think like people just don't like that form factor as much. In fact, a lot of the wrist straps still break. So one of the biggest issues for returns is like wrist straps breaking in the industry. So customers as a whole, don't love wearing that all the time. And I was joking with you earlier. Kara Swishers has said this. She sort of called wearables unwearables. She was like, I would never wear a Fitbit. I would never wear that out on a date. I never wear it to dinner. Like I would, if I wear a nice outfit or a dress, like if I'm in the boardroom, that looks hideous. And she's like, and it's annoying to wear, like, on a smaller wrist. And she's like, it just, it stands out. It doesn't blend in with my fashion. So the convenience part with Oura Ring, it's titanium, it's waterproof, to 150 meters. So, if you dive on it, it'll still work. Just don't dive too fast, too deep.
Luckily, I don't die very often, so that's fine.
Me too. Terrible smart. But
me too.
I think that convenience part is a lot of times overlooked. All right. And that's something we just hear from our users all the time, that you forget it's even there. The probably more important part is accuracy. So I think it may seem subtle, but if you walk into any hospital or ICU room, like where are they measuring your heart rate and your SpO2 from your finger? And there's a reason why, even those companies that those sensors are, plugged into the wall, into a power outlet, they're still measuring from the finger. And the reason is, so it's not like a battery issue. The reason is that signal quality on the finger, the actual signal strength of your pulse on your finger is about 100 times stronger than your wrist. And then the veins on your wrist, where your wristwatch sits. So if you look at the inside of your wrist, you got arteries. Those arteries go to the palm of your hand. Your skin is very thin. That pulse signal on your finger, is 100 times stronger. It turns out 2 orders of magnitude than the vein side of the wrist. Right here, you got veins, not arteries, less blood. If you got dark skin like me and hair, but you also have a lot more muscle tissue, bone, and so that signal is very, very weak. And so when it comes to things like doing sleep staging, doing illness, some of the stuff we've done during the pandemic and COVID, women's health, frankly, any future health features in this whole wearable industry, apnea, AFib, blood pressure, whatever it may be, the underlying data is just much more accurate. And so that's why we focused on the ring form factor, that accuracy and that convenience.
Now, that's really good information. I didn't know that. And what I'm curious, because my next question was going to be, how accurate is it compare, how much more accurate, but now you just said it. But why aren't more companies then switching to that? Do you own a patent on it at a certain point? Or what is the reason why most people are still doing the wrists?
It's a really good question. We do have some IP, but I also think it's just really hard to do. Cramming all that technology and all those sensors, into a really, really small form factor is super hard. A lot of what you have to do is custom circuitry work. A lot of this stuff works the way in this industry and the electronics industry as a whole, like the old PCs. I don't know if you had like a Dell or a Gateway computer.
Yeah, I remember that.
You could like spec your parts. You could be like, oh, I picked that.
Of course.
And, oh, I picked that. I don't even know, Western Digital or Seagate hard drive. I picked that NVIDIA video controller. And so you sort of get this like car where you're assembling this computer, you're assembling the different blocks. So the wearable industry is actually pretty much the same. Oh, you want a heart rate sensor? Go to this company. You want a temperature sensor? Go to that company. And the way they sort of, ship these, parts is like sort of like an engine block, right? And so what ends up happening is you get these preset modules that, given the industry started with, the wrist-based form factor, that the companies make these modules, that all these parts for a bigger space. And so in order to do a ring, you have to do a lot more custom hardware that takes so much longer, so much more work, so much more engineering work, so much more research and development and patience. And then it's really hard to manufacture. So I think it just is those things. And frankly, I think a lot of the stuff out there, unfortunately, is gimmicks, right? So it's like most of the people, 10,000 steps was sort of just, pulled from out there. It's not, it's even been shown in research studies not to help people lose weight. I still think moving as a whole is healthy and people should do it. And we do track steps too. But I think, since a lot of the industry started off on sort of the step trackers, the form factor didn't matter as much. But now as a wearable industry, I call it Wearables 1.0 steps to Wearables 2.0 health is moving that way. I think accuracy matters so much more. And consumers are waking up to that too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I wear the Apple Watch, and I always have this, and this happened with remember those Nike bands that were really popular back when? The Fuel Band. Remember those?
I had one. I beat everyone on my Fuel points. I put on my neighbor's dog. That thing racked up so many.
I would always compete with my friends too, and like people I was with. And like, what's interesting is there is like something to say about the accuracy. Like, I know this isn't 100% accurate, right? Because of the fact that it's counting calories when I'm stepping and moving, which I want to ask you about, because you just said something about the steps not being accurate. But if I'm doing something like rowing or whatever it is, it's not counting my exertion as accurately, right? Yeah. So, but if I walk to round the block, I'm burning more calories according to my watch. So, but I think I think more than anything, it kind of keeps someone accountable, and it keeps them curious and competitive with themselves. Like, if I burned 100 calories today, tomorrow, whatever I'm doing or not, I need to at least make that, or at least surpass it, right? So it keeps that. It's for that purpose, in my opinion. But what my question is, you were saying something about the importance of steps and the lack of importance of steps. Can you tell us some stuff about that? Because I think everything now is about the 10,000 steps.
Yeah. Well, I think, look, our focus as a wearable really has been sleep and recovery. So I think, we're the first wearable really, when we launched the product, right, in 2016, Fitbit wasn't doing sleep, our Gen 1 ring, right? Garmin wasn't doing it. Apple still doesn't really do sleep. Others just weren't out there yet. So I think our view was like sleep actually is the main focus for us. Most of our users, 95% of our users, I forget that it might be 90 or 95%, wear the ring all day long. But what we wanted to really emphasize was sleep and recovery. And hence why, the Readiness Score, we look both at your sleep patterns and your activity patterns and your heart rate and heart rate variability.
We don't get to that yet. I want to ask you about the Readiness.
Cool.
Just say why the steps. You said there's been proven that actually just counting someone's steps isn't enough. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I think some of the research out there on the step side has shown that just 10,000 steps doesn't work for everyone. I think there's even been studies showing that if you most people, as they start to walk more, actually feel hungrier and hence eat more, and then they actually end up not losing weight. I think the other thing it doesn't account for is like intensity, right? A 20-minute HIIT workout, every other day can definitely be more beneficial for a lot of people than just walking 10,000 steps, right? I think Dave Asprey talks about that. Like, you need enough stimulus and stress even if it's not that frequent, to sort of trigger a response and a change from your body and your mitochondria. And his, is an area that he's gone really deep on. And so I think, it's pretty clear that just a 10,000 blanket steps, right? 10,000 steps doesn't work for everyone. Health itself, right? There is no like one diet that works for every single person. Or
100%. It's a piece of it. It's a piece of it. And that's interesting. I agree with that 10,000 step thing. But like what I was saying a little bit just before is that at least it keeps somebody not just moving, but it keeps them like competitive with themselves. Like if they see themselves doing at least something, then the next day or whatever, they're going to want to maintain that, right? That accountability aspect. But what you were saying, and obviously, you're focusing on the sleep and recovery, let's talk about that, because why don't you I talk about sleep a lot because I think it's so important for someone's like, in terms of success, right? Your cognitive functioning, your being alert, your focus. Having good sleep, it's extremely important at the foundation. Besides that though, can you also explain why sleep is so much more, why is sleep so important? And, you can, please.
I think Matthew Walker probably says it the best. He wrote this book called Why We Sleep. It's the best-selling book on sleep out there, period. He's, head of sleep science at Berkeley. And he said sleep is, the world's best legal performance enhancing drug, something like that. He said it way better. But I think if you look at sort of any aspect of the human body and health and performance, sleep's really your magical drug to get there. So all your muscle repair, right? All your natural growth hormone, how literally your muscles are formed, all of that actually is released and happens in your sleep. If you look at, collagen is another example of that. Your skin, right? All your collagen, all your skin is rebuilt and repaired in your sleep, hence the term beauty sleep. Yeah. If you look at long-term health things like cancer, your natural killer T cells that fight cancer are all produced and made in your sleep. And your own immune system, it's been shown that people that have lack of sleep actually are 2 or 3 times as likely to pick up, common cold versus someone else. Your memory, it's a big one. There's been a direct correlation between lack of sleep and your grades. But I think even it's sort of shorter term in how you perform the next day on a test. But longer term, I think if you look at some of the things like Alzheimer's, there's been really good groundbreaking research over the last 2-3 years, reported in a couple different journals, mainly Nature, showing that in deep sleep in particular, is when your brain, washes away this toxin every night that builds up during the day called beta amyloid or tau. And so that, a lack of sleep and even potentially a lack of specifically deep sleep can lead to an early onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. So whether it's how you, remember things long-term, how you perform on a test the next day, short-term, how you, your workout goes, right? And frankly, I think we all know this too. Personally, everyone's sort of experienced this, that even just your own emotions, right? Like your mood, like you're tired, you're grumpier, you're short with people when you don't have enough sleep.
Oh no, I agree with you. And now we can talk about where you're mentioning it, like the 3 daily scores that you guys do. You do sleep, you do activity, and readiness.
Yeah.
What is readiness? Like, what is that?
I think the reason we came up with readiness was to give people a more holistic view at their health and how ready they are to tackle and perform, during the day. And that can be, perform. I don't want to think just physical performance, also mental, just whatever you're trying to get done, whatever you have to do. So what the readiness score actually looks at is both your sleep and activity patterns over the prior day and prior few weeks. And then we look at a couple of physiological signals as well. And those are, what was your resting heart rate compared to your average? When did your lowest resting heart rate actually occur during the night? Your heart rate variability, changes in your temperature, and also changes in your respiratory rate. So we look at those physiological signals from the prior night, and then we look at sort of the both short-term and long-term sleep and activity patterns. And we use all of that to sort of give you an overall score, which we call a readiness score. So whether you're an athlete or whether you're a CEO like Jack Dorsey or Mark Benioff, who use the Oura Ring, and both are investors in our company.
I was going to say, aren't they both investors in your company? It's a pretty nice investor to have.
Yeah. And so I think, you use that data and you're able to see like, hey, how much energy do I have today? How on point am I going to be? Hey, today I have really high readiness. I should really push myself further and harder in that workout. I recovered really well. Today's, the data, try hitting a PR. So I think, not a press release, but a personal record.
Personal record, right? Exactly.
Not so wide inclined, but
yeah. No. I think so. Then, what do you do with all this? What is someone to do? So they have all this data now. Like this is where it becomes a little bit right. Like, so we're doing all these things to hack to optimize our health and optimize our life, right? And we get all this data. Then what? Like, what are we supposed to do with all the data to really?
I look, so there's two things we focus on in this industry as a company that we think consumers ask themselves. Is this data accurate? And then what do they do with the data?
Right.
And so I think in terms of what they do, what we created was, there's a couple things. One, actually, you were talking about it. You sort of said, hey, you look at like your personal, what you normally do, and then you want to exceed it. So I do think there's a sense of, this has been said before, but what gets measured gets mastered. So if you start to, see data on yourself, and then you start to see like, hey, certain days my data was better, you ask yourself, you reflect, like, why is that? Oh, well, I slept like crap yesterday. Wait, what did I do? I ate like crap. I had a bunch of alcohol, or, I was up till 2 a.m. working, or maybe I just had a really stressful day, got in a fight with someone. And you start to realize and put patterns together. And, we found people tell us that just by looking at the data and thinking about my own lifestyle choices every day, I realize that if I work out in the morning, I actually sleep and recover way better than working out in the evening. Or if I eat earlier, if I have dinner 4 hours before I go to bed versus just 1 or 2 hours, man, my heart rate variability is so much better and I sleep so much better. We found people that really just are able to, by looking at the data, start to gain their own insights. Now, what we also do is we created something called an insight engine. So every day in the app, along with the 3 scores, will give you a little bit of guidance that's personalized based on your data. And so we start to look at things that are happening in the data and give you a little bit of recommendations, every day. We also have actually put together just a really comprehensive blog now called The Pulse, and on our website, where you can actually go and learn what people have done with the data and ways they've actually found and made improvements by looking at it, and certain things that you may be able to find. So I think, we're doing more and more there as a company. We're still focused on those 2 things. And, frankly, I do think, though, what's more interesting about sleep is it's more comprehensive than just your workout. And so when people start to look at their sleep data, they actually start to analyze their life and like what really was causing stress, what wasn't. So I think it's actually, ironically, someone on our team came up with this saying, which is great. Like, the night is the mirror of your day. Sleep is actually when your body recovers from all the stress of the day, whether it's mental stress, emotional stress, physical stress, right? Dietary stress, whatever it may be.
Right.
And so by analyzing that data, you actually start to get better insights about how you can do healthier things during the day and what things really work for you and what other things don't.
No, I think that's actually super accurate. And you can just tweak until and it gives it basically, it's so there's so much data there, and it's also very easy to understand. It's very user friendly, right? Like, so you don't have to be a tech genius, so to speak, right, to kind of figure out what the information is, so you can integrate it and apply it. And by the way, this is not a commercial for you. I really do believe this because, like I said, I use so many of these devices just out of curiosity. And I've been wearing this for months longer than any other one I've ever worn. So
I appreciate that. And, luckily, for business and company wise, we've just found that to be the case. Like, so many people just tell us that, like, this is the longest I've actually ever kept a wearable. It's something that I keep using every single day. we just see people check it every single morning. It just becomes part of their morning routine.
It's part of your routine. That's exactly. It's easy to build habits with it. It's very easy to build a routine, a healthy habit. It's like I said, it's super user friendly. How much of the market do you have in this space?
Oof. So wearable units as a whole were roughly about 200 million units shipped in 2020. I think IDC probably puts out the best numbers, and the wearable industry is accelerating, actually.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and so I think we've publicly said we've shipped over 500,000, and so I think we still have a tiny part of the industry, and luckily I think the industry is growing, and there's a lot more use cases, and consumers, as they look to manage their own health and understand it, are turning to new technology like this.
So did you guys kind of? I know that when with COVID hitting, I think that did you guys really spike, because didn't the NBA buy a ton of thousands of different of pieces of Oura rings because of the temperature piece, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So we're actually one of the only wearables to have temperature sensors in there since day one, even since 2015 generation 1 Oura ring. We've had 3 temperature sensors in the ring. So yeah, during when COVID hit, we were asking ourselves, like every other person and company was asking themselves, how can we help? And frankly, the readiness score, right? What we've found is every single year, users reach out to us during flu season. They'll be like, I thought my data was wrong because my readiness score just dropped, and then a day or two later, I was sick. Like we've heard this literally since 2016, every flu season. Thousands of people email us and write to us. And it turns out, because what do we're one of the only wearables that tracks temperature. Fitbit, Apple, Garmin, Whoop, none of those devices track temperature, again because you're on the finger. So we sort of all notice, right, when you go outside and it's cold, your fingers and your toes get cold first. So it turns out that your extremities are a really good way to see what's happening with your core body temperature, which is your body sort of releases and controls your heat, right, through your extremities, right, through your head, fingers, and toes. And so I think that's something that we've just known, and we've seen it in so much user data. And so we just felt like that means so much more during COVID, during the pandemic, when it was starting to hit. So we were the first wearable to actually partner with a research institution globally. When COVID hit, so in early March, we actually worked with UCSF to launch a study called Temp Predict. In the beginning, we actually donated 2,000 rings to frontline healthcare workers at many different hospitals, UCSF included, and actually got the rings on people who were, in the COVID wards, right on the front lines, mainly because they wanted to, obviously they're worried about, being in a hospital with so many people who have COVID. So we thought that would be a good way to help the community, and also obviously collect potentially very valuable data and research that could help us predict future pandemics. But then we decided to open up to our whole audience. So we opened it up, the Temp Predict study, to anyone who had an Oura ring at that time. And we had over 70,000 people enroll. And then UCSF published their first early findings, in December, even though the study was started in March. And they have a second set of findings coming. And what they showed was that certain signals in the Oura ring are actually changing significantly up to 3 days before people report symptoms. So in the app, there was, we track all the Oura ring data, but we were also tracking symptom data. And then if you did say you were feeling like you were getting sick, UCSF and part of the protocol sent COVID tests. And what ended up resulting was a fascinating data set on the best that, really any wearable has looked during COVID. And so I think, the NBA, they were trying to figure out how to reopen during the bubble. They had heard about that research study, and they actually had talked to many different researchers. And they were just blown away by the early results. And so they wanted to, as they, had the bubble in Orlando last year, they got rings to, players, but also even more importantly, staff, right? Because there's people working, the staff, there's over 2,000 people there, and there's only 450, pro NBA players. I forgot, I think it was like 23 of the 28 teams in the bubble, something like that. So, but then, we also partnered with the WNBA right after that, when their bubble started. And then UFC, NASCAR, Red Bull Racing, a couple of baseball teams, the Seattle Mariners, was one that was public, a bunch of NFL teams, which we haven't have been private, but I think, what and Las Vegas Sands and a couple, as frontline casino workers were getting back out there when they're trying to reopen Vegas. And it's been remarkable to hear. I mean, honestly, the stuff that really moves us internally is, when people tell us like, hey, found out I was getting sick, I was able to actually get a, test, even though I didn't feel sick, figure out that I was positive and stop the spread. We had a user reach out to us that was like, I was going to go see my dad and he's immune compromised during the holidays. And he was like, all of a sudden my readiness score dropped down to like 50s. And he was like, I didn't feel sick, but I was like, you know what? I'd heard about the research. I'm going to go get a COVID test. Found out he was positive and, put off his trip till New Year's to see his family after he had recovered. So I just think it's, that was so cool for us as a company to see. And I still think there's a lot more that we can do in that area. Not just COVID, it's any influenza-like illness. So I think every flu season, it spreads mainly in the workplace. And so hopefully that's something, not just for a regular flu season, but even the next pandemic that we can even help more with.
No, absolutely. So how much did your business grow just from the pandemic alone?
We've said we've doubled every year since inception. So since 2015, we've been growing, more than doubling every single year. So we haven't commented publicly on like exact growth rates. But I think for us, the whole wearable industry accelerated. I think if you look at like some of the numbers out there, it sort of went from like 10-15% growth to like 20+% growth. Obviously, we're a smaller company growing faster than the industry. But yeah, luckily we were able to act really quickly as our team, to put a lot of like pretty cool research and science effort. And then also, frankly, software efforts. We introduced a feature in the app called rest mode now. So if it looks like you're coming down with something, we'll actually send you a message that looks like, hey, looks like, you're looks like you may be getting sick and you should try to rest today and you want to turn on rest mode. And what happens is, if you do that, we get rid of all the activity scores and things like that and try to give you messaging more focused on if you're, that helping you rest and recover and guidance around that.
Wow. So you're constantly just updating the software to be better, really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because, I was going to ask you, because now, like we were saying, it's such a massive business, right? Like there's like everybody's doing it. Facebook, Google, isn't Amazon getting into it? These are like $1 trillion companies. How do you plan? And I know you don't want to tell me all the secrets here, but maybe one secret would be okay. How do you guys how are you guys going to stay competitive and in a market that's so growing and everyone's like putting, they're all kind of jumping in the ring. So, excuse the pun.
No, look, it's first of all, I'd say a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Right.
So I think it's a growing industry. It's really unfortunate, but consumer health as we know it, right? There's more obesity than ever. There's more depression than ever. There's more insomnia than ever. There's more apnea than ever. So consumers are looking for answers. So, I think that is for all companies in health and wellness, right? There's obviously like underlying good, positive momentum with that consumer demand. I think the second thing is really just focusing on those two things I mentioned, right? Both, is this data accurate? And then what do you do with it? Right. I think being the first wearable, consumer wearable really, focused on sleep, there's more people now that understand that than ever on how important this is, right? Whether it's Chris Paul in the NBA playoffs, who's wearing an Oura ring, to Prince Harry, right? To Jack Dorsey or whoever it may be. So I think like just that importance of sleep is a really good tailwind as well. But I think that accuracy piece is going to matter more. As more and more features come out in this space that are more focused on health, I think, versus just steps, I think, consumers are really going to want the best and most accurate thing because this technology is new. It does have shortfalls too. And so I think focusing on, creating the most accurate wearable and then also more and more personalized insights and information that's usable for the consumer. I think, if we do those two things well, I think we can at least have 1% of the market, if not a lot more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So basically then, I know you guys just raised a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, another $100 million. So what do you plan on doing with that money? What are you going to put it into? I want to know all the trade secrets.
A plane? No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, look, we're hiring people. Things don't make themselves. Things don't make things. It's people that make things. And so I just think building and hiring the right team, everyone from research scientists to data scientists to hardware engineers to software engineers to people that can make really compelling content, that know how to explain sort of the health. What is heart rate variability? How do you break that down to the average consumer? How can you make that more relatable and relevant and understandable to an audience? So I think we're just hiring across all functions, and that's probably most of that fundraising will go into building the team.
And then, so also, I have another question. Well, I know we're going to probably wrap it up soon, because I know you have another meeting or interview to get to. But then, in terms of the company, it's called Oura Health. Are you going to stick with the ring, or are you going to be kind of expanding into other products? Or
it's a good question. I mean, I think the bigger picture obviously is health. Right. With better health, right, you're going to have a better life and be a better version of yourself. Right. No matter what your focus is or what your why is. I think we wanted to keep that health side there, to realize like it's the focus on health, right, as a company. And the ring just happens to be the best form factor for us now, but we're also not limiting ourselves. So maybe in 5 or 10 years, everyone wants these things implantables, right? Or like Elon Musk is saying, a chip in your brain. We don't think that time is here yet. But I think
getting close.
Yeah, ultimately, I think our focus is on health.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, and like I said, I am a big fan of it, and like you see, I'm wearing it. So, how do people find out more about it? You said you have a letter, a newsletter. It's called The Pulse, or like a blog.
Blog and an email. But you can go to all of that and just see it on our website. Just ouraring.com. That's OURARING.com.
I should also say, so basically, besides the hardware costs, what's it, about $300 to
$300, $300, $299 to $399, depending on the finish. And we do have like a matte black and a gold version of the ring that we charge $399 for.
You do. And then besides that, what are the other costs there? Are you going to, that's the thing, how is it just the hardware? Because you're not charging
just the hardware. Yeah. Everyone wants us to, they're like, shouldn't you charge me more? But no, I think.
Is there a monthly subscription model coming?
No monthly subscription. I think for us, we want to make sure that consumers are understanding relative value. I think some of the other stuff out there now that, if you pay $30 a month and you do that for 24 months, it's like, $720, it's a lot. So I think, the Apple Watch still is $400. I think a lot of the Garmin devices are more than that. And so I think we felt like $300 is sort of, we've spent a lot more money on R&D. A lot of this stuff is pretty custom. A lot of the research we do is, does cost real money. And so I think, we felt like $300 is the right price point where the market's at and for the value that we're delivering. So no consumer subscription
necessary.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I have one more question. I see I have a few more minutes. So on my Apple Watch, why I like it is because I can press indoor running and I can do rowing and whatever else. I mean, even though it may not be as accurate, of course, as your stuff, but at least it gives me a benchmark.
Totally.
Are you guys going to be able to get into that stuff more, where then I can run and I don't have to be wearing this and wearing that and doing all that?
100%. So we actually, a couple things. If you do use another device or app, or we actually pull data from HealthKit and Google Fit. So if you Apple HealthKit and Google Fit, so if you actually do a workout on something else, we'll actually import that data automatically if you give access to it. The other thing we just introduced is something really cool feature that our team, I think thought of really well, called automatic activity detection. And so what happens now is if you tag something in the Oura Ring, we actually, after a couple of times, if you tag a certain type of workout, like you did rowing, we'll actually start to automatically recognize it and add it, to your data next time. So, and now we're even starting to prompt users and ask them, did you just do this? So I know during the snow season this year, there was a couple of people that are like, oh my God, I just went snowboarding. My Oura Ring just asked me, were you just snowboarding? So I think we're making that stuff a lot easier. And I think activity, again, getting back to the name Oura Health, as you pointed, we started in sleep, but I think, we're going to come full circle on all of your health.
And then how do you sleep? Because you're the CEO of a very, an emerging, growing company.
Yeah.
And the irony always is like, you're probably like sleep terribly. You know what I mean? Like how do you sleep now that you are the CEO?
Yeah, no, the last few weeks have been pretty good. I think like anything in life, it changes, right? So I think last week I probably averaged, I can actually tell you, I can look in the data here and pull it up, but I think my weekly trend last week was average readiness score of 87, which is
that's good.
Pretty good.
Better than mine.
My sleep scores were probably closer in the 80s. Today's, I had a 78 readiness and a 72 sleep last night. But frankly, here's how I use the product. All right, I slept poorly last night. I was up late doing work.
Right.
I had a lot to get done, and I was working until 11 p.m. And so, what am I going to do tonight? Like, I'm already planning to wind down a lot earlier and catch up on it. And so, I think for me, it's like just like everything in life, it ebbs and flows. It changes. Your life is gonna keep changing day to day, week to week. Right now we have some pretty cool stuff that I'm excited about. That spending a little bit more time.
Do you want to tell me?
I wish
I'm all ears. That's why you're here. I want to hear something that you haven't said 100 times before. Give me one thing.
All right.
Give me some breaking news.
Yeah, really overlooked thing. Super cool. So women's health. We think women's health is going to be a big new area for wearables, and specifically us because we measure temperature. We put out a study with a researcher at Berkeley in December, and most people, we haven't done a lot of press on this yet, and we're working on a feature. But what we showed is this researcher showed at Berkeley, Dr. Grant, that you could actually see a woman's LH surge, luteinizing hormone surge, one of the key hormones, with sort of like 90% plus, R squared or accuracy, even a day or two before, she was using both saliva and a urine test for LH in that. And so I think if you think about that application, part of the problem in, that fertile period, by the time these tests tell you they're sort of like, urine test or saliva test, you actually miss, about a third or half of the fertile window. And so I think for us being able to see some of that stuff in advance could be super helpful in the future. Women's health is a really cool area. And the research study did come out, so it's public. We'll link it. We'll shoot you the link. And I think there's a lot there that can be really exciting for us and for customers. And I think the cool thing about that, it could be everything from understanding when you're pregnant. We just launched a pregnancy study in the app with UCSD about a month ago. And so I think that looks really interesting, the data that happens when you find out you're pregnant. And same thing, people are finding out from the Oura Ring data before a saliva or urine test. Wow. And so I think the other one is obviously your period, right? I think there could be some pretty cool applications where we actually, inform users, just like we did with illness, right? Like, hey, your data is changing, this could be one of the reasons why. I think, I think there's some pretty cool stuff there that we can do. So
that's kind of groundbreaking. Yeah.
So I think we're pretty excited about a lot more to do. And I think you'll see a lot more coming from us in our app on that as well.
This is so exciting. My gosh, you guys are doing so many great things. It's amazing.
Appreciate it. Again, it's a team. So it takes a village, as they say. And thankfully, we have an awesome team.
How many employees do you guys have now?
I think 300. I think we probably just hit 300 this week or last week.
Wow. And where's the head office?
So San Francisco is where we have most of our U.S. employees, but we did go remote during COVID. Right. And then half of our team is actually still in Finland. So we've been growing our offices in Finland. We have 2 locations there, Helsinki, and then also in northern Finland, a city called Oulu. But a decent bit, I'd say half the teams in the U.S., half the teams in Finland, a decent bit now in San Francisco. But we've also, I think we have started to realize that like more offices, making it sort of optional to come back to a physical office or how many times you have to. So we now have people in New York and Boston and Texas, like all over the place, San Diego. So I think, I think luckily, we're just growing through the pandemic, which, recruiting and all that. And onboarding people virtually, has definitely been a thing we've had to learn.
No, absolutely. I mean, listen, I'm really happy you came on this podcast. I don't want to keep you. I know you got to run, but I actually learned some very valuable things that I didn't even know. I didn't know about the fact that you could it's much more accurate on your finger and versus your wrist. And now I'm just shocked that more people are not doing it. But what is the percentage of accuracy you said? Like, so when I'm reading data or anybody's reading the data from you, what's the percentage of accuracy?
Yeah, we put out data on this on the Pulse on our website, and also in third-party independent academic research. That's actually the meeting I'm late for right now.
Sorry.
No, all good. But I think we're the only consumer wearable that's shown even our heart rate and heart rate variability overnight is 99 to 98% correlated to an EKG. Sleep staging, we were actually one of the first wearables to put out independent sleep study. That was done back on our Gen 1 ring. Our Gen 2 ring, I think you'll see some exciting stuff coming on that, on the accuracy there. So can't talk about it yet, but I think it'll be out there soon. The women's health side, I think we talked about, that paper is public, that paper indicated that looks like there's 90% type accuracy on being able to see, in this case, I think it was LH that they were looking at illness. I think there's some really good data out there showing that, essentially it was 76% of the participants were able to see that signals and changes in their data 3 days before they felt symptoms. But it was actually 90% of people were able to see it at least a day before they felt symptoms.
It's amazing.
Which is pretty shocking. So I think all this stuff we're trying to validate and put out there for consumers. So the whole reason we chose the ring form factor was accuracy. And so, it does take time. It does take, a village, as I say, to work with the community and independent researchers and academics to get that stuff out there. And we're going to keep doing more and more of it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I didn't ask you another chunk of questions, but that's okay. You'll have to come back and we'll go over those another time, because I know you've got to run, and I appreciate you being polite about the fact that you're in a rush.
All good. I try to be polite, but I just feel like I'm being rude. Rude.
I want you go. Can people find you? Do you do anything? If people have a question for you,
I'm on LinkedIn, so that's probably the place I'm most active.
Perfect.
So just Harpreet Rai. Singh. Actually, my middle name's there too. Singh, Singh. I think on LinkedIn. I gotta check, but
I'm sure it is.
We have a hashtag Oura Ring on Instagram. We have an awesome CX team that gets to people's questions and answers there pretty fast. We also have the website, and if you send in an email or question, our team will get back to people. We do thousands of those every day.
Perfect. Well, go. I don't want you to be any later. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Look forward to connecting again.
Habits and hustle, time to get it rolling. Stay up on the grind, don't stop, keep it going. Habits and hustle, from nothing into something. All out, hosted by Jennifer Cohen. Visionaries, tune in, you can get to know them. Be inspired, this is your moment. Excuses, we ain't having that. The Habits and Hustle podcast, powered by Habit Nest.